What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. Something strange is happening in Russia right now. Over the past couple of weeks, Google searches about a possible freeze of personal savings have exploded by more than 1,000%. People are rushing to figure out if their bank accounts could be snatched away by the authorities in the name of patriotism, national security, or some ambiguous war effort. While the chatter began as mere rumors, the anxiety spreading across the country suggests something deeper than a random conspiracy theory. It feels like that the final warning before a big storm, and everyone is checking their wallets, half expecting the government to come knocking at their doors. Authorities still officially deny any intention to seize public savings. No official orders have been issued, and you will not see bold headlines proclaiming "your money is ours." Very communistic style, right? After all, doing this means that you achieve the ultimate level of obedience among your countrymen, which is not the case in Russia, nor will it ever be. I truly believe it. Governments might send selected few to fight their wars. They might cut public security and health spending. Such things affect many, but not all the people. So, the citizens might feel uneasy, they might even protest. But it will not be as severe as if the regime puts their hands literally into people's pockets. But when you are as desperate as Putin currently is, the measures he might take can be equally hopeless. People sense the reality of Russia's economic troubles, the spiraling war costs, and the government's track record of making extreme moves when cornered. They can almost taste the possibility of losing everything, and their eyes continue to open wider with each day passing. So today, let's explore why these rumors refuse to go away, how war expenses keep eating the budget, and how the uneasy alliances might break under the weight of dwindling resources. The sense of looming disaster is not just paranoia. The government has already tapped into every resource it can find, from increased taxes and fees to quietly inflating other tariffs. Now, with war dragging on and casualties piling up, the authorities need more money to keep everything afloat. They still need to pay soldiers, produce more tanks, buy munitions from every supplier they can find, including the shady places, and to continue to maintain the illusion that they have unlimited funds. But in reality, where economic growth is tanking and reserves are shrinking, it's only a matter of time before they look at the untapped pool of public savings. It's trillions of rubles we're talking about after all, hundreds of billions of dollars just laying there, seducing Putin with its innocent presence. Which, by the way, is not as much as it might seem, and soon you will know why. Now Russians know the difference between real prosperity and stage photo shoots with smiling workers. After all, a fleeting wave of affluence over the past couple of years came at the cost of plundering reserves, cutting corners and printing money. We've been talking about this problem for months already, while Elvira Nabiulina saw it coming years ago. I'm not relieving her from responsibility, but I honestly think she is probably one of the very few common sense-minded people in Putin's inner circle, and most likely even his most promising opponent. After all, she did, first indirectly, and then pretty unambiguously, said almost using exact words that the war is ruining the economy. But Putin never listened. And now, that short-lived abundance is fading, replaced by an ever-present worry. Will the state demand a patriotic donation from regular people just to keep the war machine grinding? The fact that officials have not spoken a word about this supposed plan only amplifies the collective paranoia. When the government falls silent on critical matters, it often means they are contemplating something drastic. And it makes sense. If they are planning to do something like this in the near future, they will certainly not announce anything along the way. They don't want to sow the seeds of fear into people's minds. The government thinks that being paranoid is much more safe for the government, for them, than being scared of a real fact. And once the paranoia calms down, this is when such unfavorable laws are usually quietly passed. A staggering 50 trillion rubles in private savings is out there on the people's banks' accounts, all technically within the government's reach if they decide on a freeze. And 50 trillion rubles, roughly $485 billion, is massive enough to bankroll the war for a year, if just a quarter of it gets temporarily borrowed. That's right. That's the most conservative estimation of the price of Putin's war, not taking into consideration the billions that end up in oligarchs' pockets. The billions which the regime decided to compensate for oligarchs' frozen assets, yachts and villas. And the ones who pay this money back are, as usual, the regular people. And still, take a quarter of it, the war can only be funded for 1 more year. If they decide to rob the entire Russian population of their last ruble, the war will continue for 4 years total more. The war which approaches 3rd year's mark. Now, this does put things into perspective, how truly expensive the invasion is for Putin. Such a windfall would make even the boldest cynics blink. The defense budget for 2025 hovers around 13.5 trillion rubles, so do the math. If you find yourself in power and your grand patriotic mission is running low on funds, that pile of personal money becomes incredibly tempting. Still, there is a reason the freeze has not been triggered just yet. I mean, what else they have left? The reserves are wasted, fees have been increased, tax system has been changed, and oligarchs did their voluntarily contributions. But an outright cash grab is the maneuver that can destroy governments. When people are used so openly, they get angry fast, and anger is a hard beast to tame once unleashed. The regime might handle the fact that many Russians are quietly upset about the war, but seizing personal bank accounts is another story. This is when things get truly personal. Even those people who might be in support of war and might be potentially ready to donate money on their own will most certainly not appreciate when money is taken without even asking them. They will feel robbed, and even Putin's supposed allies and supporters will turn. Even law enforcement would be robbed. Imagine trying to mobilize riot police who have also lost their life savings. You ask these people who you just took 25% of their life work away from them to protect you, the thief, from the very same people who lost a quarter of their belongings. I seriously doubt the police will take Putin's side in this case. That's a recipe for disaster, for a chaos. So for now, the state continues to plug financial holes by raising fees or printing more money. They rather keep the system afloat under the guise of normalcy than risk rebellion. But once again, it will not last long. New holes appear faster than they can be fixed. The curious twist is how Russia's leadership balances a militaristic foreign policy with relatively sober economic management. At the highest levels, that's Putin versus Nabiulna. You have men at the top who talk about bombing enemy territories while simultaneously trusting technocrats to keep the ruble steady and the inflation rate in check. Some figures like Kirienko, Mishustin and our familiar Nabiulna form a sort of liberal enclave, tasked with preventing a meltdown. Their skill in handling monetary policy is exactly what props up the war effort. They ensure that salaries continue to flow to soldiers, bureaucrats and pensioners, starting off a complete collapse of consumer demand. It's a bizarre duet. One hand shells out a cannon fodder, the other hand tries to keep the economy from crashing. And as we already know, the methods that they use, such as simply printing more money, are just temporary solutions. You simply cannot print money, do nothing, and expect not a single bad thing will ever happen. The earliest consequences are obviously the inflation, which is in double digits in Russia right now. The official statistics is most likely lowered, but the real number should be somewhere in 20s. And every time the central bank comes up with an innovative solution, the regime of Putin says, "Thank you," and continues to increase military spending, soldier bonuses, and factory workers' salaries. So all that anti-inflationary work is reduced to complete nothingness. We see military contract sign-up bonuses increasing almost weekly at this point. It almost feels like different regions of Russia are competing who can offer the highest numbers and make the headlines. So obviously, these economic instruments that Nabiulna is developing with such a high precision and mastery are no longer relevant when it is time for them to be implemented. I honestly think she gave up as of recently, maybe a couple of months ago, and she is just doing bare minimum to create the illusion of work and get away from this suspicion from her persona. But that delicate balance could crack. If, for example, these so-called economic wizards were sidelined or replaced with more radical nationalists, the scenario changes literally overnight. The idea of freezing savings, turning them into non-negotiable war bonds, or declaring them a patriotic sacrifice might suddenly gain momentum. All it takes is one impulsive decree, and the entire financial system starts collapsing. This tension between hawkish policies and rational economic management is the heart of the Kremlin's existential dilemma. The more the war drains resources, the more hawks pressure the moderates to do something extreme. For now, no official announcement about seizing deposits has appeared. Yet, rumor after rumor surfaces, fueling suspicion that the clock is ticking. After all, markets work from the future. Markets are always 2 steps ahead, and most of such rumors and assumptions end up becoming the reality. People glance nervously at new taxes, bracing for a bigger blow. Loans are becoming too risky to take, and some prefer stashing rubles literally under mattresses rather than trusting them the banks. This behavior alone can push the economy to a downward spiral. As consumer spending stalls, businesses see immediate sales drops and investments freeze. The government might cling to illusions of normalcy, but the waves of dread are eroding the foundation of everyday life. The war is unfortunately nowhere near close to be ended, and neither is the state's appetite for funds. Kim Jong-un might provide missiles, but he obviously also does demand payments. Factories keep churning out drones, but the production drains capital away from essential sectors. The promise of robust post-war economy fades each day as new debts accumulate. The rumors about a savings freeze are simply a reflection of public awareness at this point. They see the war machine devouring rubles faster than the government can replace them, and they sense that something even bigger is yet to happen. Whether it is a higher inflation, an unprecedented tax on deposits, or a sophisticated scheme to repossess funds. People of Russia open their eyes wider and wider. They start asking questions because life forces them to do so. If some people were never forced to directly experience the consequences of war because their loved ones went to fight in Ukraine, well, now they do feel the effects of the inflation and the possibility of losing a substantial amount of savings, which will go towards continuing the invasion they do not understand. And when they are forced to do so, suddenly many will realize that they do not even support the war in the first place. Well, there you have it, guys. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. If you wish to support my work, there are links down below. Thanks so much for watching. See you tomorrow. We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell. Their twisted words and feeble claims on us all they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway. We do not believe in ridiculous Russian propaganda.